All right, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Spectrum Report. The Spectrum Report is brought to you by Neural Balance with Anandinol. Anandinol is our patented herbal vitamin mineral blend that was created by a doctor and a pharmacist to help their own families. You can learn more about it by going to our website, neuralbalance.com, and click on the How It Works tab. You can learn all about the science behind it. Of course, you can also like and follow us on Facebook. And we just started a new YouTube channel. So if you're not watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, then subscribe and click that notification bell so you'll get notifications as we upload new content, have new interviews, and promos and sales. Holidays are coming up, so keep an eye out for that. If you'd like tips and feedback from other parents and caregivers about neural balance or life in general, search Neural Balance Support Group on on Facebook and ask to join. We ask 3 simple questions, and if you qualify, we'll let you in. And it's a great community, lots of helpful stuff there. So head on over and join. So today's show is something that got me pretty riled up, I have to tell you, over the last couple of days. A good friend of mine, Nikki Torres, is an advocate, autism mom, all around great person. And she started to experience some medical issues, and that has started, it's kind of snowballed into a plethora of other problems. So, what we wanted to do today is bring Nikki and her friend Kate, who hopefully will be able to join us. I see she might be having technical difficulties, but when she comes back on, we'll put her up in the show as well. But I'd like to introduce Nikki Torres to the show. Nikki, how are you doing?
Hi, Gabe. Thank you so much. It's good to see you. I'm hanging in there as
Good,
best as I can.
good. And it looks like Kate's with us too, so I'm going to get Kate in there. Hi, Kate. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
All right. So everybody's working. We're here. Good to go. I this is kind of a different show. Usually we try to do uplifting things, or we try to offer, information, resources, maybe a new product or a new program or something that can help the families that watch. But this was something that just really stuck in my craw. So I wanted to get you in here today to talk about this. For hopefully we can help you, but even more so, we can help someone else who might be going through something similar. So, Nikki, as I mentioned, you're an autism mom and an advocate. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into that? You have a son on the spectrum, and then
I
that
do.
kind of changed the way you led your life in a lot of different ways. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my son really was the catalyst to my entire career. You know, the love that I have for him. He was diagnosed at the age of 2.5 years old, and I didn't know anything about autism other than what I had learned from the movie Rain Man. So it was very much new and very, very lost. And so when he was diagnosed, I just began to try and absorb as much information as I possibly could. I mean, I read all the books and I started reaching out and making, all these contacts, and I started getting him into early intervention, which is actually how I met Kate. And I just became so involved in his care. And as a single mom, I realized that in order for me to really be able to help my son, there was no way that I could actually work a full time job and also get him to all the therapies that he needed, which was numerous. He needed numerous therapies. So we started with, he had language and he lost language. And then we started with sign language. He had the speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy. And the more that I delved into the world of autism, the more that I began to develop a real passion for wanting to help other families that also had children on the spectrum. And so what I did was I approached an organization called Infants and Young Children. They contracted with USF Early Steps. and I began banging on that door and asking for a job. I wanted to be a family resource specialist. I wanted to help other families that had children with disabilities, not even just autism, just disabilities. And so I banged on that door long enough and hard enough until they finally opened it up and they let me come in part time. And so I started as a part time family resource specialist with infants and young children in early steps, USF early steps. And I was able to actually help families while at the same time work around my son's therapy schedule. So it was actually, really for me, it was just God. It was God driven because I was I was being educated on how to help families that have children with disabilities while at the same time getting paid and being able to still take my son to all his therapies and then help my son with all the knowledge that I was gaining. So it really just worked out perfectly in that sense. I did that for close to 10 years. Um, do you want me to go on? I mean, there's.
Well, it's one thing that strikes me. One of the first things you think is, how do I help my son? How do I help other people? And that's just,
Mhm,
that's just your nature. I mean, we go back.
mhm.
I was telling you right before the broadcast. I was telling Kate, we go back, you and I, to about eighth grade, Crystal Lake Junior
Yeah,
High,
that's right.
and so I love Facebook because it's really cool to be able to reconnect with all these old friends, and those friendships live on through Facebook. So that's really neat. But
Absolutely.
even then, I mean, I remember as far back as I've known you, you were always, I don't know if gentle is the word, gentle when you need be, but I think you carry a razor in your shoe too, right? So,
I do. I can
my,
be a very fierce advocate.
right, right. So and you've always had that nature where you wanted to help other people and
Hmm.
serve other people.
Always.
And one of the things that struck me, even when you were kind of lamenting about what was going on with you right now, one of the first thoughts you had was, other people are suffering like this, other people are going through this
Yes.
too. And it just really struck me, and made me also want to do what I could to help. So,
Thank you.
Kate, how did you meet Nikki? How did the two of you come into to become friends?
Well, we became friends when I also worked for infants and young children of West Central Florida. And at one time during that, I don't know, I think I must have been with them maybe 5 years or so. Um, we actually shared the same kind of office space. So,
Me too.
I would go across the hallway and check with her on something if I had an issue with the family or a problem or something I needed a resource. And I always could count on her that she would know where to point me, because I was working with families with disabilities as well, with children with disabilities.
Hmm.
And she was just a very trusted resource, and became a really good friend, because she is this kind of person who is very caring, very straightforward, very no nonsense. Let's get down to business. Here's what we need to do to help kids. Here's what we're going to do, and by gosh, I'm going to figure out a way to do it. And I'm sort of the same way, so it just worked
Absolutely.
out very, very well.
That's neat.
Yeah.
And
Kate and I clicked immediately.
that's great. Your love for other people and
Yes.
your willingness. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's great. As long as I've known you, you've had a real servant heart, and that's the thing. Over the years, being friends on Facebook, I noticed there you were constantly posting links to resources and stories about the good, the bad, and the ugly about living with autism. You were always, don't forget this meeting, don't forget that meeting. If you
Yeah.
need resources, always, always just communicating and trying to be helpful. And I noticed. Okay, I'll admit, I with Facebook time I was screwed up. I said what it's been about a year, but it's actually been about 3 years.
Yeah.
That about 3 years ago, you started to develop some symptoms. You weren't exactly sure what was going on, but it turned
Yeah.
out that you have an autoimmune disorder, and you've
Yes.
gone through chemo and all kinds of stuff. Tell us,
Yeah.
how did you know something was happening, and what ended up, what was it, and how is that treatment affecting you now?
Yeah, September of 2016, I had already worked my way up as a director, working for a nonprofit that served families that had children with disabilities. I was covering about 20 counties, I guess. And so I went to a regional conference, and about, I don't know, 6 or 7 of us came back from this conference sick, and I was one of them. And I just, the symptoms that I developed, it was like a virus. So the symptoms that I developed was I started to have like body pain, and then I developed a fever that lasted for 2 weeks. And doctors could not, they couldn't, they could not figure out what was causing this fever. I was hospitalized for one of the weeks, and doctors just kept giving me all these different sort of cocktails of antibiotics and stuff to try and combat this. Finally, the fever broke, and I experienced some liver swelling. And after this long 2 week period, they sent me home, and I thought, okay, that's it. I'm done. You know what I mean? I'm better now. I'm gonna get back to work. I was an avid runner, so I would log at least 12 to 15 miles a week. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I was in the gym often. So I ate very clean. So I was really at my healthiest when I got sick. It was just a virus, and so it kind of spiraled downward from there, because I kept going back to the doctors and saying something is not right. I noticed that my stamina, I didn't have the stamina that I used to have. I was tiring very quickly. I was having all over body pain. I was just so, I had brain fog. I just knew that there was a shift somewhere, and I was different. And so, I kept having to go back to doctors and insisting that they continue to check me. And, I guess that part of being the advocate in me sort of kicked in, because I just refused to accept that there
You
was
know
something
better,
wrong.
right? You know
Yeah,
better than to take no for an answer. You can tell
exactly.
something's wrong, and you
Exactly.
have to keep pushing. I hear that a lot. I do.
Yeah. And yeah.
Kate, were you working with Nikki at the time?
No, I was not. I had left that job and actually had moved to Montana from Florida.
Oh,
And but I clearly remember her posts on Facebook and how scary they were. Because one of them, I remember she said, I woke up, I'm in extreme pain. I don't know what to do. And her friends responded and said, go to the ER, do this, do
Mm-hmm.
that. And this is not typically Nikki. I mean, she doesn't complain about this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when she made that statement, it was just scary. And that's when I first found out about her struggle, for lack of a better term, because
Yeah.
that's what it's been for, well, going on 3 years now.
3 years. Yeah.
and,
First to
and one of
figure
the
it out, and then
things,
to treat it, or try to
yeah,
treat it anyway.
one of the things I remember, this may seem silly to you, but it's funny how people observe your life on Facebook, right? And the things that you say that make people realize something's going on. That was one thing, the complaining about being tired and in pain, because I don't think I've ever heard you complain about anything. But then one time in particular, I remember you mentioned something about you had to stop. You went out salsa dancing and you had to come home early because you just couldn't keep it up. And I was like, that's not like you. Like, you work
That's not
hard, you
me.
play hard, and when you finally get a chance, for you, that's like a fun workout. Like, so I know how
Absolutely.
much you love it. And when you were like, I just couldn't do it, I had to come home early.
Yeah.
That was, I
which
think, one of the
is a
times.
huge that's a huge red flag for people who, you know what I mean, who know me, because
Yeah.
I'm an avid dancer. I think I've won like maybe little 18 first place little miniature salsa competitions. It's a passion that I have, and being I was in such great shape. So for me to not be able to, you know what I mean, to have to stop dancing and come home, something is really wrong, and something was really wrong.
Right. And the thing about autoimmune disorders is it's not always something that's visible. So
Exactly.
people that don't know you well may
Exactly.
say, but you look great, you look fine.
Right.
But I
Right.
think a lot of the folks who are watching this, because of the community that I'm in with our product and this show, they'll probably have a better understanding of it than, say, the average person. But it takes its toll. And now you're on all kinds of stuff that have a lot of debilitating side effects of their own. What are they? What did they ever even determine what it is? Or they
Yeah,
just give the
yeah, they
okay?
did. They did. After so many testing and seeing so many doctors, they finally found that I have a very rare autoimmune disease called sarcoidosis.
Hmm.
And sarcoidosis, in a nutshell, it's an autoimmune, it's an a disability. It causes inflammatory cells to clump together. So these inflammatory cells clump together and they form on your organs. And if enough of these cells form on your organs, they actually affect the functioning of that organ.
Hmm.
And so they found they're called granulomas. So these clumps of cells are called granulomas. And so they found granulomas throughout my lungs. And so that's how they determined that I had sarcoidosis. And sarcoidosis can go anywhere. That's the thing about this particular autoimmune disease, is that it can spread to every single organ in the body, including the brain, including the skin, including the eyes. It has the potential to be a lifelong chronic illness, and it also has the potential to kill you.
Hmm.
If you don't get it treated properly, it causes a lot of inflammation, a lot of pain, debilitating fatigue. Um, and so about 2.5 years ago, I actually had to stop working. I couldn't work anymore. I mean, it was just that bad. And yeah, for me to not be able to work, I've always worked. I've always taken care of my son. Um, and so I had to go on disability benefits, which that actually, I wound up living off of 60% of my income.
Oh
So that,
man.
so that was really tough on
And as
me.
a single mom, it's not like you were rolling in
Mhm.
it in the first place, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's a significant cut.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot of folks, if they go, well, if you're on disability, then the medical issues are not, the medical bills are not an issue, but that is not true at all.
Oh
I
no, no,
mean,
that's not true at all, because I was on Cobra for the longest time, and all of my doctors that I have numerous specialists. I would say probably about 10 specialists that I see. So I was already established, when I was working and getting treated. I was already established, with our local clinic here in Lakeland. And so none of my doctors took Medicaid. And so I was on Cobra, and I had to stay on Florida Blue so that I could continue to see my doctors. And so the medical bills just kept mounting and mounting and mounting and mounting. And I didn't get onto Medicare. You have to wait. The thing about Medicare is that you have to wait 2 years. You have to be disabled for 2 years before you qualify for it. So I had to be on just, regular insurance for 2 years. And so my medical bills were just mounting and mounting. So it just became impossible to balance all the medical stuff and all the bills, and then living on 60% of my income. It was like an avalanche just coming down over my head.
well, and I don't think people realize how quickly this stuff can add up. So
Oh yeah.
you're so sick you can't work. Because you
Yep.
can't work, you're on Cobra. Because of your illness, you have to have these specialists. Most of
Yeah.
these specialists don't take Cobra.
Yep.
So
Yeah, they won't take Medicaid. They will. Yeah, they will not take the Medicaid. They will only take the insurances, Florida Blue, Aetna, the regular insurances.
so you're left with this illness
Hmm.
that's potentially debilitating. It now is pretty much debilitating because the
It is.
fatigue, you can't work, you're left with these medical bills. And so this is the part that blows me away. So you go and you try to find help, you're doing everything that you can to keep your head above water. You have one car, you're a single mother, you have one car So you're not driving 3 or 4 vehicles. You're not driving a Benz. You're not living in a mansion. You're modest means. You're really watching your
Mhm.
pennies. You're just doing everything that you can to take care of your son.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what ended up happening? Did you file Chapter 7? Is that how this recent? If you could tell us a little bit about what happened that I read a couple days ago that just made me so angry I could spit. Tell us a little bit about what's going on now that presents this need.
It was a really difficult decision for me because I've always been very responsible with my bills. And to have to file for bankruptcy for me was, I was doing everything in my power not to have to do that. But when I realized that I really didn't have a choice, I went and consulted with an attorney who advised me that due to my debilitating medical condition, a Chapter 7 would be the most appropriate for me because I'm going to continue, you know what I mean, to need ongoing medical treatment. And so I filed a Chapter 7, and he made it sound like it was going to be just the easiest thing because I have no assets. I'm a single parent. I literally am living off of, Social Security disability benefits. Um, Child support for my son ended in May. So that was another loss of income, which, contributed to my decision. And I'm currently trying to get child support back for him because of his disability. But we haven't gotten that yet. And so yeah, I filed a Chapter 7 believing that I was doing, you know, the most responsible thing that I could, and admit that I needed help and couldn't maintain these bills anymore.
And I know that was hard for you. That's not.
It really was. I've never in my life ever filed, ever. Even as a single, I've been a single mom since my son was 7 months old, and I've never, ever once ever had to file bankruptcy, ever.
And for you, it's not a pride thing. I mean, it may be a little, but you're a big believer in contributing and to
I
take
am.
care of business and to not, I wouldn't say mooch off the system by any means in
Never.
this regard, but you're against that type of thing unless it's completely
Absolutely.
necessary. So
Absolutely.
you actually, I mean, you've been dealing with this now for 3 years, and you're just now getting to the point where you're desperate
Right.
enough that that's
That's
the
exactly
approach that
right.
you're taking. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
So,
right.
Kate, you decided that if Nikki wasn't going to reach out and ask for the help that she needed, that you were going to step in and you were going to try to help her out. And I think that's awesome. What a good friend you are. She needs friends like that because she's not going to help herself unless she absolutely has to. So, tell me how you decided to step in and what you did.
Well, basically, I had, I was monitoring her, watching her, interacting on Facebook, and reading all these things, and she never, ever, ever um, gave up, never sounded dire, never asked, never, she was always upbeat and taking responsibility for what needed to happen. But when this final thing happened with the bankruptcy, I was always trying to figure out what can I do. I don't live in Florida. I can't go there. I can't see her. I can't help out that way. But when the final thing hit, with the bankruptcy, then I said to myself, you know what, there is something I can do. And so I asked her if, I said I wanted to create a GoFundMe page, and would she be okay with that? And she said yes. And so I did, because, I can do that living in Montana, even being at the distance. It was one thing I could do for her.
Right. And
I was so grateful, Gabe, because I was in such a desperate situation, and we haven't gotten to the part as far as why I was so desperate. Um, you know,
And that was what I wanted to. That was the thing that really outraged me. These people that you were seeking help from
mhm.
actually were very cruel, I thought. And tell us a little bit about. I mean, gosh, I don't even know where to start. But you're talking with a lawyer, and she's no help, almost sadistic. It sounded like.
It was a male attorney that I
Okay.
hired, and he made it sound like this was going to be a really easy process. And As we started going along the process, he worked with an associate. He had an associate attorney, and I explained that I could not travel because of my disability. And his associate laughed and said, "Good luck." But it wasn't like the kind of good luck, like, this is really hard. It's going to take a lot of effort. It was like it was almost like, you're never going to get that. And he treated me. It was the first time that I can remember somebody actually treating me or feeling like I was being discriminated against because I don't look sick. And so he sort of treated me like I was full of it. And this attorney actually uh, did some things that I thought were very unethical in keeping me from being able to have this trustee hearing by phone. It was like he was determined that I was going to have to travel, which I cannot travel. I had several doctors stating that I could not travel because of my condition, and so that's kind of where it started. And so it started. He was with the trustee. The trustee is the person who represents the creditors. And so I don't know if if this attorney, whatever he whispered in this person's ear, but all I know is that before I knew it, the trustee was coming after me like I was one of the wealthiest people hiding assets. And they were going to uncover and turn over every stone to find all these hidden assets that I owned. And here I am. I have a very small, modest, humble home that I have lovingly tried to make it warm and comfortable for my son and myself. And The next thing I know, the trustee's coming after me and saying to me, you have equity in that car. And they priced the equity of the car at a ridiculous amount. And I challenged that and said, no, my car does not have that much equity in it. And I, offered, another appraisal. And apparently she didn't like this. So she sent out an appraiser to my home to come and look at all of my furniture. So now, because I challenged her on the vehicle, now she was going to come and see what I had in furniture. All my furniture is secondhand stuff, garage sale, marketplace. Like I said, I've lovingly, repurposed and, refinished stuff. And so her appraiser came into my home and literally took pictures of everything in it, opened up little drawers and cabinets, and, joked and said that when he got home, he was going to crack open a few Budweisers because Bud made him smarter. And he would be then appraising my stuff. And I found it very unsettling that this man was, first of all, in my home to begin with, but also knowing that he would be potentially getting intoxicated as he was valuing the little bit of, of stuff that we own in our home. And the next thing I know, I get a letter, a motion for turnover of my car and my furnishings. They wanted my vehicle and my furniture.
Yeah, and I have to remember this is a family show, and I'm a Christian man, so I don't say what I want to say right now, or it's just appalling to me. You know what? I get it. They have a job. The trustee's job is to get money for their clients. I get it,
I understand that.
but where is the compassion even during that process? And now they are talking about taking a car, the only car from a single mom with a kid with autism. They're talking about furnishings. I can just imagine.
Hmm.
I mean,
I mean,
I've had parents. What's that?
I mean, all I could think of was, they're going to come and take our stuff. I mean,
Stability.
how would my son
Yeah.
with autism, handle, coming to a home that is emptied out,
Right.
and and to our vehicle being taken? How would I go to back and forth to the doctors for my medical treatment? How would my son, who's in his first semester of college, who has a chance at being a productive member of society. We've worked so hard to get here, and I have to drive him back and forth to school. It's his first semester of college. How would my son go to college? I mean, I had a chance to, we had a preliminary hearing, and I had a chance to sort of plead before the judge and explain to the judge that these numbers that the trustee came back with, they're not accurate numbers. I mean, her appraiser actually gave me up so many upgrades to my vehicle that didn't exist. There was like 7 upgrades to my car that I didn't have, and all of a sudden my vehicle was worth nine. It's a 2012 Toyota Camry, and it was worth 9,000 plus dollars. I had another appraiser, a professional appraiser, come in. He said, "Nikki, your vehicle's worth 6,200." Her said 9,000 plus. The furnishings, I had to have somebody come in and look at my furnishings. The professional that I hired, came in, 20 years experience. He's an auctioneer and an appraiser. He said, "Nikki, your stuff is valued at about $1,500. Her appraiser said 3,000 plus dollars. And so I was trying to explain to the judge that these numbers are wrong. I know that the trustees have a job to do. I know that, oftentimes, when you file bankruptcy, you have to pay something, but let it be numbers that are correct,
Reasonable, right?
accurate, just,
Right.
fair. This to me was like financially raping the most vulnerable of our population.
Well, it almost seemed like vengeful too.
Yeah, it was.
This person didn't like what you had to say the first time around, so she made it as hard as she could. And then when you pushed back on that, with that, well, I think a lot of times people in that position are used to people who just lay down and accept their fate,
Right.
and they didn't know who they were dealing with when they came knocking on your door. So you knew that they were being inaccurate, and that's another thing too. And I can't stress this enough to anybody who's watching, or will be watching. Kate and I know you. I've known you for a long time, and you would have no problem saying that's worth that amount if it were
Absolutely.
worth that amount, and you would have no problem taking care of these bills and doing this stuff if you were able. But here and I said, I think in the description of the video, for nearly 2 decades you've been an advocate and working to educate yourself and better yourself so that you can serve other people. It would have been very easy for you to take the knowledge that you took and just worry about you and your son.
Yeah.
But all of your extra energy was always spent serving other people. And for you to be in this position now, it's reprehensible. And we're not talking about, at this point, we're not talking about tens of thousands of dollars that they're holding you hostage and threatening to, I mean, really ruin your life. When I said there, Autism Mom Threatened with ruin over medical bills, people don't realize how important a car is or a stable home, especially for a kid on the spectrum. I've had parents tell me that they do as small a thing as change the scent of the laundry detergent, and it causes a behavioral disruption for until they change back. So now we're going, no car, let's hop on the bus, and no furniture. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Let's hop on a bus that I can't even walk to. I
right.
can't. I wouldn't even be able to walk to a bus to even walk my son to a bus. And I mean, when I had that preliminary hearing, I pleaded with the judge, and I explained to the judge that, Your Honor, this is I don't have any assets. This is all that I own. I need my vehicle to be able to take my son back and forth to school. I need my vehicle to be able to go to the doctor to get treatment. And her response to me was, "Well, it sounds like you're disappointed in the legal system."
Oh my.
And she began to give me sort of a breakdown of how Chapter 7 works. And I listened patiently. And then I had to just interrupt her. And I said, "Your Honor, I have to go back to something that you said. You said that it sounds like I'm disappointed with the legal system. It goes far beyond that. I'm not just disappointed. I'm talking to you about my life and the life of my son. I'm telling you that if my car were to be taken out of my driveway and taken from me, it would have severe consequences on my health. I could not see my doctors. My son, who has a chance at being a productive member of society, that would be taken away from him as well. He's in his first semester of college. I mean, I really broke it down to her. I said, I only have Social Security disability benefits. I have secondhand furniture, and I have a 2012 Toyota sitting in that driveway. That is all that I own. So,
And they want to take it.
and her response was, well, then I guess we're going to trial.
So,
And it's so unbelievable, Gabe, and Kate knows this too, that other attorneys that I've consulted with have found it completely appalling and have said that it normally is not like this. They don't know why my particular case, why it's tail spinning this way. But I believe it's from the other attorney having said something to the trustee. I really believe that.
well, and use the word discrimination, and I also know that that's not a word that you throw around lightly. I know that you're not a big fan of the whole victim status that seems to be so popular these days. Everybody's a victim. I know
No
that
way.
you never see yourself as a victim, and
No
as a matter
way.
of fact, even during all of this, you still use words like thankful and blessed and that, and you're such. I want to tell you too, you're such an encouragement to me, going through these difficult times and still always holding your head high. You're proud, you're thankful, and you just want to do what's best for your son. I that's as I'm sitting here talking about that, as you're talking, and I'm thinking it's all about him. Like you would do a lot, you would put up with a lot, but you also know that he's at a turning point now. Kids with autism, one of the biggest fears I hear from parents is, what will my child do when he becomes an adult? One, he's no more. He's not legally under my care anymore. He can do what he wants, he or she. And what about when I'm gone? Will he be
Yes.
able to function? He or she be able to function? Because a mental health facility is not the place for an adult on the spectrum, most of the time. An assisted living facility is more for seniors. That's not really the appropriate. It needs to be a very specific type of assisted living, a type of facility, or they need to have certain programs and support so that they can be more self-sufficient, but they need help. So you've spent all of this time trying to help him and mold him and turn him into the man that he is, so that he can survive on his own, so that he can contribute even and serve and love other people the way you have.
That's
And we're
right.
right on the cusp of that.
We actually are, and it's been a really tough 3 years because I've worked I always felt like I worked as a professional, right, in the field of disabilities, and I lived it personally, but now
Right.
I've taken it to a whole other level because now I'm a person with a disability. So being a single mother, as a person with a disability, raising a child with a disability on my own, and I've done it without complaint. I'm not a complainer, like you said. I don't subscribe to the victim mentality. I have always had a very strong faith in God, and I rely on my faith. I'm fortunate that I have wonderful friends and family, but I have maintained this home. I've kept my son in a stable environment. He's been in the same school. He's only gone to one elementary school, and then he went to a private school, and he was there all the way till he graduated. So stability for us has really been important. And I've maintained that even throughout this illness. But right now, I'm really being threatened with my life being turned completely upside down and being ruined, not just mine, but even his life being affected. And so now the trustee, she keeps throwing around different numbers. First it was 3,100, and then when I challenged her, she said, okay, I'm going to come in and now look at your furniture, and now it's 5,600.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so now another attorney reached out to her and talked to her, and she came back and said, okay, well, I'll settle for 35. She gives me 35, then we'll settle this out.
That's ridiculous. And so, Kate, that's where you came in. You said, well, we need help, right? And we know she's not going to ask for it herself. So you set up the GoFundMe. One of the deadlines on that. So I'm going to put in the description of the video a link to the GoFundMe. So we'll have that set up once we're done here. I do a couple edits to the video, and I'll put the link in the description. So anybody who's watching this, once we start repurposing it, click on that link. I had a question about the GoFundMe. Can someone actually contribute as little as $5 or $10? Is there
Anything? Yes.
anything?
No.
So there's no
Anything.
minimum?
No, there's no minimum that I'm aware of at all. Kate, are you aware of any minimum? I didn't think there was.
I am not.
Okay. So what I was thinking, if enough people see this and they're willing to just $5, a latte, right? It's
Yeah.
funny, people see things as very expensive on one hand, but then they'll spend $5-10 on something silly. So what I'm asking anybody who's seeing this is to live without a latte for one day and click that link and just donate $5. I mean, if that's all you can do, if you're willing, just do $5. I mean,
I would be so grateful. I would be so eternally grateful. And even if you can't do $5, even if you just share it,
Right.
or pray for us. You know what I mean? I believe, strongly in prayer. I'm open to all of that. And I just want to say one thing, Gabe, I feel is really important is that, this is happening, and this is, as an advocate of people with disabilities, that I've been for the last 15 years, I can tell you that I really feel like the Lord has put it on my heart that this is going to be a new area of advocacy for me. We have to work on legislative reform. People with disabilities that file for bankruptcy like myself should not ever be treated this way. This to me is very punitive. It's predatory. And so I've decided that, once I get this situation settled, this is going to be, even if I have to do it from my sick bed, I can still have a voice. I can still write. I can still make phone calls. And I'm going to see what I can do to work on some type of legislative reform in this area.
Kate, are you surprised by that even a little bit?
Absolutely not. That's typical Nikki. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was sitting here thinking, okay, wait, maybe I can make her a website now that she could do her advocacy work with.
Right. And I
So-
can help you make videos so you can take
There you
people to
go.
task.
Love
It's
it.
all good.
I love it. I'm all about it. And, I feel like God in many ways has allowed this to happen because, he has lit such a passion in my heart. I don't want anybody else going through what I've been through. And especially, not our, our population, of people who are disabled, and especially those who have, who are caring for others that are disabled. I mean, this is horrific.
And that's the thing. You have a double whammy there. And so, first, if you're watching, just because someone looks way younger than they are, doesn't mean that they're not really struggling with something. You hit the nail on the head because you and I think a lot alike when it comes to, assistance and probably even bankruptcy and stuff. If you're irresponsible, you used your house like an ATM, you got yourself into debt, that's on you. That's your problem.
Exactly.
But when you have unforeseen, uncontrollable circumstances, such as an illness like this, and then on top of it, you've devoted so much of your life to helping and serving others, and you still have a very real responsibility to your son, it's a different thing. I mean, it's almost like a medical bankruptcy should be a different category of bankruptcy altogether.
It should.
Yeah, it's
Without
almost
a
like
doubt.
because hey, if you have a Mercedes in the driveway and that's your only car, but you overspent and that's why you're filing bankruptcy, I can see someone, that being a conversation. But when you have an old Toyota and that's the only thing that you have, and you need that to get your son who has a disability, it's I can't even fathom that anybody would want to take that from you. It's almost like that. Obviously, they don't care. They just need to get what they want, and that's the end of it. So
Yeah. And you brought up a very good point, Gabe, about just because someone doesn't look sick. So, I don't wear my disability on the outside. Mine is in the inside. And, my disease, just so people know, it takes a lot for me to get my makeup on. I do it. Because again, I don't, and in my mind, I have this disease, but it doesn't mean that I have to let myself go. It does take effort for me to put my makeup on, but this disease has spread to my lungs. I just last week was in the hospital for 4 days with my heart, and I just got the report back from my heart. There were almost 3,000 episodes of irregular heartbeats. 3,000 they captured, of irregular heartbeats, and also
And that was just in like a 3-day period, right?
that was just well. I had to wear a heart monitor for a month because
Okay.
I was having such erratic heartbeats. They put it on for an entire month, and they captured about 3,000 irregular heartbeats, and they also captured what's called bradycardia, which is a heart rate that's very slow. So at one point, my heart rate fell to 41, a resting heart rate of 41, and then it would accelerate to tachycardia. And at one point, I had a resting heart rate of like 141. And so now I have to go see a rhythm specialist, because they're worried that I could have what they call bradycardia tachycardia syndrome. So I just found that out just yesterday. So last week I was in the hospital for 4 days for my heart because my Apple Watch detected AFib. And so this disease has spread to my lungs, my heart, my liver, and it's also affecting my eyes. I get inflammation in the lacrimal glands of my eyes. And so I have to constantly be putting drops in my eyes. And so the disease is progressing, and it was progressing to a point that's when they decided that they needed to get more aggressive, and I'm on chemotherapy.
And
And
that's what I
they,
was saying. That's
yeah.
despite all of it. I've watching your journey on Facebook. You've talked about prednisone daily.
Yep, yes, I'm on the prednisone. They put me back on that. I was on that for 2 years, and it wasn't working for me. And so they decided that they needed to get more aggressive. So they put me on the chemotherapy, and they're upping the dosage slowly because I lost so much hair the first time I started taking it. I know it's hard to believe because I've always had a lot of hair, always, ever since school, I've had a
Yeah.
ton of hair. But the first time that I took a shower when I started the chemo, I was literally pulling out handfuls of my hair, and I just cried in the shower. I was just crying in the shower. So they had to back off the chemo, bring it down to a much lower dose, and slowly up the dosage so that the hair loss wouldn't be so significant. And they doubled the folic acid, which really helped. And so they also put me on a different kind of steroid, not prednisone, but a different kind of steroid as well. But I'm taking probably close to 15 different medications to try and manage this disease. And the chemotherapy has been really, really hard on my body. So I'm going through all of this, while I'm literally fighting for my life. And that's what
Right.
I'm doing. I'm fighting for my life. And I'm
And
fighting
actually,
for the
you're
life
you're
of my son.
that's what I was going to say. And I
Yeah,
know in the forefront of your mind is him the whole
absolutely.
time. So
Absolutely.
it's just it's ridiculous. I don't even know how to. I'm at a loss for words, for at least words that are PG, as far as how to describe this situation. So Kate started the GoFundMe. Let's talk a little bit about that so that we can kind of wrap things up. I
Yeah.
want to let you go so you can rest. Again, even doing something like this for a period of time, I'm sure
Hmm.
is wearing you down. So the GoFundMe, let me see. This is an experiment. I'm going to throw this up there and see. Okay, so it cuts
There's
us all
questions on
off.
that.
So this is your the GoFundMe page, a picture of the GoFundMe page, and it was just started like a day ago. So
Yes.
we're trying to reach $3,500 now. A question that I had was, if we raise more, do they let you raise more, or does it stop at 35? If they raise more, can you give her more? Does it
I'm
become a
just so afraid.
liability?
I'm just so afraid that if I were to raise any more, that they would just that they would just want to take it. It would just
Right.
be considered an asset,
Right.
and that they would just say, "Oh, she raised, 6,000. Well, then, we'll take the, you know what I mean? I
Take it
just
all.
don't want to give them any more. Yeah,
Well,
she,
but here's the thing, Nikki, and I'll do arm wrestle with them if I have to. You're not raising it, I am. So
And they can't
let's
stop you
just
from paying a bill with it if there's excess.
let's just see how it goes. And
All right.
it would be wonderful. I hope we meet the
it would,
goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope we meet the goal too. I'm praying that we meet the goal.
So I'll
At
put the
least.
link there in the description. We want to raise $3,500 to get you out of this pickle. At least it's a temporary fix, so you can keep your car. And
Yeah.
the car, I know, is the biggest thing. The car and the furniture. I can't believe, for the life of me, that they're even considering this. But because I thought I saw some of your friends commenting, and I was under the same impression that they can't take your only car. But apparently, we were wrong about that. They can take whatever they want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they absolutely can.
So, and I'm interested to see where this takes you in the future, because I do agree with you. Something needs to be done for cases like this. It almost needs to be a category of its own: medical,
Absolutely.
disability, bankruptcy.
Absolutely.
That when there should be a certain assets that are just off the table.
And here's one thing that I did not realize. The trustees actually make sort of a commission off of what they take. And that to me changes the dynamics completely.
Tax collectors,
I mean, seriously, that to me,
scoundrels.
it should not be, that should not be in the equation. Not saying that the trustees shouldn't, get paid for their work. They should, but it should not be sort of commission based off of what they get.
No, because then they pull out all the stops. For
Right.
some, obviously, it robs them of what little decency they might have left, and it makes it all financial, and that's just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
and
So
that's my understanding. At least that's what my attorney explained to me. And I found that to be a factor that definitely needs to go, because it just changes the dynamics completely.
well, I can't. I'm sorry this is happening to you. It couldn't happen to a less deserving person. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at your Facebook and thought, "Oh Lord, why does the wicked prosper?" And this one is suffering this way. But you have your eye on the higher prize, and
Right.
that gives me comfort, because I know that gives you comfort. And we are praying for you all the time. And
Thank you.
I want to try to get this video out to as many people as I can, and hopefully we can get that $3,500 raised. What is the time limit? Is there a specific date that they're wanting this
I
by?
have a preliminary hearing set for December the 2nd.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that, I would think up until that point, to then, say, yes, I have it, or no, I don't have it. But
So right now things are on hold for the court date. They can't just come take your car, as far as you know, at least until
yeah,
then.
yes, they can't. Yeah, they can't touch the car or
Okay.
do anything like that until December 2nd. We'll go before the judge again. I physically won't be able to be there, but I'll be there by phone. But I'm thinking that then, we'll have to come and say, yes, we are going to agree to this, and just pay this trustee her money, and, let God deal with her.
Right.
But, this is not done. This is not over for me. You know what I mean? Because I mean, hell bent and determined, with as much, strength as I can muster, to make
They
a
don't know what
change
they've
and
done.
make a difference. Oh yeah. Yeah. This is going to be a new mission for me.
All right,
Running
good.
people.
Kate, thank you so much. I know I made you sit there a lot. I appreciate you coming on. I thank you so much for starting this GoFundMe, and for helping, and for being there for Nikki. Nikki, thank you so much for everything that you've done. You've been a great friend for a long time, and I'm so sorry this stuff is going on in your life.
Thank you
But
so much.
yeah, we're going to do what we can to help. So keep us
I can't
updated
tell
on
you.
Facebook.
I will, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, Gabe and Kate. It's so good to see your face. And Gabe, so good to see your face after so long, both of you. Thank you so much for caring enough
Sure.
to do this for me. I will forever be grateful. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. You ladies have a good evening, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
All right, so I'm going to throw this up here one more time. This is, it's not a link, you can't click it, but this is what the page looks like. So I am going to put a link in the description of this video so that you can click on it. And like I said, $5. If enough of us get on there and just do $5 each, we will meet that goal in no time. She's already well on her way. It's only been up for about a day, so. $3,500 she needs to raise, and again, this is not someone who is just irresponsible with their money or living high on the hog. We're talking about a 2012 Toyota and a bunch of secondhand furniture in a single mom's house who's raising a son with autism and who's been an advocate for 15 years or more for other families. So we're talking about a good person who was taken down by a debilitating illness and is now facing bankruptcy and the loss of her vehicle and furnishings. And she needs that stability in her life for her son's sake. She needs that car to get herself to doctor's appointments, to get her son to school, and to get him to therapy. So this is not, I don't want to tug on the heartstrings too much, but I do want to tug on them enough that you can, what I say earlier, ditch a latte or go a day without a latte. Yes, one day without a latte. Click on the link for the GoFundMe page for Nikki Torres and just donate $5. Let's see what we can do to get her to $3,500 so that she can keep her car and that she can keep her furnishings and keep that stability that she's worked so hard for so long to provide for her son who's on the spectrum. Thank you for joining us today. If you haven't already done it, follow us on Facebook, like our Facebook page, on YouTube, subscribe, and hit that bell so that you will be kept up to date as we do more videos and produce more content. Please, if you can find it in your heart, click on that link for GoFundMe. Just donate $5 and help Nikki and her son. Thanks for watching.
Because of neurobalance, my daughter can sleep through the night consistently, which hasn't happened in years, and we are so thankful.